You're listening to Airey Bros Radio. Be there or be square, because it's all killer, no filler.
The Oxygen Advantage instructor training during the pandemic, and I was like, this is how you're meant to be breathing. Wim Hof's a load of BS. You shouldn't do Wim Hof, you should do this. Then I got very evangelical about nose breathing. She stopped me and she went, actually, Mike, no, it's more important to breathe with the diaphragm. You can breathe in mouth or nose, I don't care. You should be diaphragmatic. Breathing spectrum for me is in two parts. You've got like hyperventilation, I breathe more than I need. And hypoventilation, I breathe less than I need. What I do is I've got like a helicopter approach to breath work, or what I'm also trying to use is like a Swiss Army knife. I genuinely think this, if you go back a couple of thousand years ago, there was no Buteyko, there was no Wim Hof, there was just breathing. Just breathe how you think your body wants to breathe. And I've been playing with that a little bit recently. Like, your body has this wisdom. I mean, a lot of it comes down to are you breathing properly? That's the vast majority of it. How's your nervous system? How's your chemistry? And how's your mechanics? This is Mike Maher from Take a Deep Breath, and you're listening to Airey Bros Radio.
Mike, I am super excited for this conversation because I would say probably about 3 or 4 months ago, I found your YouTube channel, and you have, I like to call it like a buffet of breath work. Any kind of breath work you're into, you got it on there. You have the guided breath work meditations, and for me, I think that's the best because I like dabbling a little bit of everything. I like doing some of the holotropic stuff. I like doing some of the nostril stuff. I like doing some of the box breathing stuff. And the thing that really intrigued me about you is you have that wide variety of options. And Rich and I, the people we've talked to, they're either in one camp or the other. They're either, no, don't do the hyperventilation. You don't want to do that. Just nostril breathing. Or vice versa. So I'm real curious to how you stayed so open and managed to, all right, you want to do the holotropic for this stuff. You want to do the box breathing for this. So I'm just kind of really interested. I guess we'll start there, kind of where you got on the path and how you remained throughout your education and breathwork to stay open.
Yeah, I like to say I Forrest Gumped my way through all of this. So there was no clear plan. So I did the Wim Hof in 2016 and spent a week with him in Poland. If anyone's seen the Vice documentary, I went to those places. It was really cool. And I think I probably heard of box breathing before I did that, but that's probably it. So I didn't really know of any breathing techniques. And honestly, genuinely thought this was the only technique that existed. Didn't know about anything else. And so I did this and had some really powerful experiences that week in Poland. You know, I went there an atheist and I came back thinking, what the F is going on here? There's all sorts of things I'm communicating with and seeing and, you know, anyway. And I did that for about a year, maybe 2 years. I would do the Wim Hof every morning. And the only way I can describe it now looking back, and I love every breathing technique, but I realized that wasn't probably the right one for me. It was almost like chasing the high. I've done different drugs in my life and different things. And the first or second or third time you do it, you're like, what the hell? Wow. And then I almost feel like you're constantly trying to get back there and you can't quite. Sometimes if you leave it a long time, you might get close, but you never really get those, especially being with Wim in Poland with, 59 other people with mountains all around you and some beautiful energy and Wim playing the guitar and, going back in your bedroom and lying on your bed, you're never going to get that. Anyway, so that was the start of it. But I didn't get better. I bet I'm a stress head. I'm anxious. I've had a lot of issues with stress in my life. The Wim Hof would give me a relief, but only for like a short period of time, and then it would come back. So I'd sit in my car before work, really going for it. And I thought, you know what? The harder I go, the more I'm going to feel relaxed, yeah? So I'm really going for it. I'm really huffing and puffing every day. And again, but nothing ever got better. So anyway, fast forward a little bit. I started making some YouTube videos about Wim Hof. Again, all I know is Wim Hof breathing, right? There's no other breathing techniques out there. And then the YouTube channel starts taking off in sort of 2018. I'm thinking, maybe I should look at if there is anything else out there. And I came across Buteyko, which is slow breathing, Patrick McHugh, Oxygen Advantage, slow breathing, coherence breathing, box breathing, and then found some pranayamas, which are these like ancient Indian yogic traditions. And then found some qigongs, which was I was like, what the hell? There's like thousands of breathing techniques out there. Again, still not got really a clue. And then I did the Oxygen Advantage instructor training during the pandemic. And I was like, this is how you're meant to be breathing. Wim Hof's a load of BS. You shouldn't do Wim Hof. You should do this. Then I got very evangelical about nose breathing, and it just happened to. I don't even know what happened. I just thought I'm going to reach out to James Nestor, who wrote the book Breath, because Patrick McKeown, who wrote Oxygen Advantage, told me it's the best book on breathing. I thought, well, if he's saying that, it must be a really good book. So I wrote out and said, do you want to come on my podcast? And I didn't have a podcast. I had no guests, nothing. And his instructor, and I said, oh, I've got 30,000 followers. And and they're all breathers. And so they said, yeah, of course, we'll get him on your podcast. And I didn't know who James Nestor was, never heard of him, never read his other books. He came on. Then the next week he was on Rogan, and my podcast just went poof. Then I got Patrick McKeown on because he was teaching me. And then I just got really lucky, and then I started interviewing different people. I thought, well, maybe I can keep this going. Maybe it becomes a proper podcast. And I was interviewing Belissa Vranich, who does mechanics. Every single time I'd be Googling, like, who are the breathwork people? Who's there? What other podcasts are there? And I would just reach out to everybody. And then it really hit me when I was telling Belissa Vranich, who's the mechanics lady, I was trying to tell her about the benefits of nasal breathing. I was like, yeah, you're only meant to breathe nasally, right? And everything else is shit, yeah? And she really, in a really beautiful way, she stopped me and she went, actually, Mike, no, it's more important to breathe with the diaphragm. You can breathe in mouth or nose, I don't care. You should be diaphragmatic. And I was like, what the hell? I've just spent all this money and time investing in like nasal breathing. That is the evangelical way to breathe. And now she's telling me something, and I felt really embarrassed. And I remember watching the clip back again. You can't really tell, but I remember going really red and thinking, oh, sugar. So that's it really. That's the shorter version, which is every guest will give me something new. And then I started, after about 40 of these podcasts, I was like, okay, I can see some patterns here now. And what I describe now, what I do is I've got like a helicopter approach to breath work, or what I'm also trying to use is like a Swiss Army knife. And so in that little Swiss Army knife, you've got all these little tools, but you wouldn't use the screwdriver to undo a bolt, and you wouldn't use the scissors to magnify something or to pull out a hair. You know, you need the right tool for the right situation. And so I think a lot of the benefit comes in knowing what's the right breathing technique for the right thing you're trying to solve. So if it's stress, if it's sleep, if it's digestion issues, if it's back pain, if it's unbalanced nervous system, fill in the blank, if it's focus and concentration, whatever your desires are, we'll look at what's the best breathing technique for you. And so I don't stick to one modality. I'm just using the breath. And I think I genuinely think this, if you go back a couple of thousand years ago, there was no Buteyko, there was no Wim Hof, there was just breathing. And I think the old yogi traditions or whatever, they would just say, breathe like this or breathe like that. Or what I'm getting into now, which is really freaking interesting, is just breathe how you think your body wants to breathe. And I've been playing with that a little bit recently. Like, your body has this wisdom that actually knows how to breathe. If you can listen to it, it's very interesting. So we can explore that if you want as well. But that's the version of what happened. What
led you to Wim Hof? You mentioned, you had some stress in your life and that sort of stuff, maybe work related or other things. Yeah. Was that really the impetus to start looking into some breathing techniques as to stress relief?
It was nothing to do with the breath work. It was all to do with the cold. So I heard him on Rogan. In fact, I heard Rogan keep mentioning Wim Hof, Wim Hof, Wim Hof. And I was like, and the name is just so, I don't know, majestic. And I was like, oh, Wim Hof. And so I was just like, okay. I remember one again, sod it. Who is this freaking Wim Hof guy he keeps talking about? And I just found the podcast, listened to it. And it was like, wow. And I still don't know to this day what happened. But I remember I'd never done anything like this in my life, ever, ever, ever. I went onto Google, searched Wim Hof. He had a retreat in Poland and I booked it. And I've never, ever done anything even close to that. And it's by myself. And I just got kind of the ticket out there. But I went there for the cold, 100%. Didn't really even, the breathwork didn't even register for me. It's he does breathing techniques. Fantastic. Had no idea of the potency of them. It was literally, can he help me get into the cold swimming pool? That was it.
And what was your wanting to get into the cold pool?
Ooh, that's a great question. When we were kids, we would go on holiday and there was a swimming pool and my dad would dive in and he would swim back and forth, and I would jump in and jump back out again. And it was very embarrassing because why can't I handle that? What's wrong with me? Why can't I get in that pool? Because other people can clearly get in. And I was like, there must be something wrong with me. So I carried that lack of growth mindset, that fixed mindset, that I'm just one of those people that can't handle the cold, scared of the cold. And then I think listening to that podcast, I was like, maybe we can all handle the cold. But there was definitely something at a deeper level going on there. Because again, I've never done anything like this. So something cool to me about him. But yeah, for me, it was like an embarrassment or a shame almost of not being able to be a man and get in the cold water like my dad. Yeah.
Okay. What's your cold practice like now?
Intermittent, to be honest with you. I had a bath last year outside. I go through phases. We've just come back from Poland, and there's a beautiful spa right next to my girlfriend's family's home, and they have a cold plunge, pretty cold plunge. So every time I'm in the spa, I'm in that cold plunge. Nature swimming. It's been a while. I'll definitely be doing something this winter. Normally with my best friend who I met on the Wim Hof thing, we'll normally go off somewhere and we'll go and do some cold, but I don't do the daily showers. Again, I saw this thing the other day and it got me really thinking, I need to get somebody on the podcast to talk about this on my side. Somebody's saying that there's, because there's a lot of benefits to cold, right? There's a lot of benefits to being in the cold, but I did see somebody say, if you're in the cold every day, you're stressing your adrenals out and you can get adrenal fatigue. And I don't know enough about it. So I just heard that. I thought, I might lean into that a little bit. But I don't do the daily cold practice. Mine's more intermittent stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I've never heard the adrenals with the cold. Now it's kind of the same with the breath work, right? I thought the Wim Hof was good. Like, no, do the nostril breathing, then it's the diaphragm. So it's funny with the cold as well. So you'd mentioned the Swiss Army knife approach of having, a particular breath for particular what you're trying to fix or what you're trying to work on. So with your clients, as far as people you're working with, do you give them multiple types of breath work for, say you're waking up and then, going to work or then winding down or pre-workout, or is it more in particular for the specific person based on, what they're dealing with in their life at that time?
That's a good question. So I only work with about 4 clients a month because it's quite intense from my side. So what will happen, this is just very, very high level. We'll go through about a 45-minute assessment first. And I'll assess how good's their ribs at moving, how strong's their diaphragm, where is the breath moving, what's their breath holds look like, how long can they exhale for, what does their bolts got. So I do all these assessments with them. And that shows me where they are right now. Then I'll ask them to give me their perceived stress level, anxiety level, sleep quality, sleep length, how many hours of exercise they do. So I do a real deep dive, get a real assessment. But that's all that's doing is show me where their breath is right now. It doesn't give me anything else. That just shows me where they are currently today. Then I'll be like, okay, what are your top 3 things that you're trying to work on? Forget breath work. What are the top 3 things that you want to work on that you think I might be able to help you with? And often people say things like concentration, stress. I feel like I can't take a deep breath. I want to be more patient and calm for my kids. Whatever you can think of, I've had all those things. And then my job is to go, okay, how can I use the breath to help you to get there? So I, in the past, had people talking about trauma, and I was like, I don't work with trauma. So I would normally refer them to somebody else. Although that's changing now with the new certifications I've got. But I would typically work with things that I know that I could impact on. And I was just saying this to actually a friend the other day. I've turned away a number of high paying clients recently that wanted to hire me. And I was like, I can't help you with where you need to get to. If it was trauma release or, fill in the blank, that's not what I do here. When it comes to spiritual stuff as well, it's like, you might have a spiritual experience, but I'm working with the science tools here, and don't get me wrong, I've had the spiritual experiences, but I'm not that guide. I'm not that breath coach. So, I'll work out exactly what they want to get, and then I'll build the package just for them. And so, it might be, a lot of it comes down to are you breathing properly? That's the vast majority of it. How's your nervous system? How's your chemistry? And how's your mechanics? They're the big 3. Almost think about them as 3 legs on a bar stool, and if any of those are too short, the bar stool's going to fall over. And so they're the big 3 I typically work with. I use movement as well, a lot of movement practices, a lot of stretch practices. But typically it's like I'll work out where they need to get to and what their areas are. So I've got a client right now. She just couldn't take a deep breath. She just felt stressed, had a lot of stuff going on in her neighborhood. She said she used to have good breathing practice but didn't. So I put her on a protocol, and the big measurement that stood out for me recently is on a breath hold on empty lungs, she could do, I think, 30 steps. And 60 is where good starts, by the way. 60 is good. So she was, quite far away. Gone through the process with her. So not only is her sleep better, she started exercising now. She's doing hangs every day and different things. She got up to, I think, 77 steps today, which is just so wonderful. And so we said, well, why do you give a crap about how many steps somebody can do? The more you can hold your breath on empty lungs and do these steps is an indicator of how well your body's processing the gases. And the more steps you can do, very roughly speaking, generally the slower your breathing is going to be at sleep, at rest, at exercise, and the slower your breath is, the more signals go to your brain to say I'm safe and I'm okay. So there's loads of benefits to it. But just wrapping this question up, it really is about, let's assess where you are right now. Where are you trying to get to? Let's see if I can help you get there, and then I'll put a plan in for you. So no two clients have had the same treatment from me. It's different every time, which is fun. It's fun for me. If I was doing the same thing every day, I'll get bored quite quickly. But everyone's got their own unique challenges. Like I had a guy that wanted to work on sexual performance in the bedroom. So, I'm jumping into the studies on PubMed. What's the best breathing techniques for that sort of stuff? And, going through that. And somebody else wanted to work on focus and concentration. So what's the best one for that? Somebody wants to energize in the morning. So different tools for different situations.
So someone listening to this podcast that's getting intrigued and going on your YouTube page and maybe getting a little overwhelmed of where to start, can you give some like 2 or 3 ways to self-analyze to kind of figure out which direction you should go in?
So if you're fresh and you're thinking, I would like to know where I'm going with this, I'd probably do the BOLT score, BOLT, blood oxygen level test. Just YouTube it. And that's going to tell you how sensitive you are to carbon dioxide. Most of us are quite sensitive. And so if we're quite sensitive, i.e. less than 20 seconds, and this isn't, by the way, how long can I hold my breath? This is what's the first impulse to breathe. It's from the oxygen advantage. And so if you're quite sensitive, I probably wouldn't be doing Wim Hof or holotropic. I'd probably be doing something slow, like coherence breathing, 5.5 breaths a second, or box breathing, or something gentle, something to slow everything down. Because the whole breathing spectrum for me is in 2 parts. You've got like hyperventilation, I breathe more than I need, and hypoventilation, I breathe less than I need. And these can both influence what's here in the middle, which is how many breaths am I taking per minute. Because for the 23.5 hours a day that you're not doing a breathing exercise, you're just breathing 14, 16, 18 breaths per minute. We've all got our different breath rates. And so what I do with clients is I work on this. Let's slow down. Let's do slow, gentle breathing exercises, which will impact your daily breathing rhythm. So your BOLT score will go up, blood oxygen level test. When you get your BOLT score to about 30 seconds, you're in a good place. And in that good place, if you want to start doing some sexy breath work, go for it. And obviously do what you want. People can still do the Wim Hof breathing or holotropic breathing because there's benefits to that. But generally, in my experience, we're all breathing too quick, too shallow, dysfunctionally. Our diaphragms aren't working properly. We should fix that before we start playing with the sexy stuff, I think.
Mike, you mentioned the diaphragm a couple of times, and coming from a coaching perspective, ultramarathon runner perspective, a lot of times, just like with trying to fix people's running technique, it's, well, I know how to do this. Everyone knows how to do it. I crawled, I walked, and then I ran. And you get the same sort of mindset a lot of times where, well, I know how to breathe. My body does it unconsciously. Like it's just something I know how to do. So I'm curious, how do we get to athletes to, one, to get them to realize that they're not using their diaphragm, and then 2, how do we go about coaching them to better utilize their diaphragm?
So there's a couple of things. I think I've spoken to a number of people that coach really high-end athletes, and the ones that tend to do the best jobs are the ones that speak their language. That's the first thing. I don't speak their language. I've worked with a few athletes, but I tend to work with entrepreneurs, CEOs, that sort of thing. So just putting that out there. But I have spoken to a lot of people that have worked with rugby players, football players, tennis people, and so the language is important. So if you have that language, I think that really helps. I think if you and I went and tried to do the same thing, you'd be far more successful than I would, because I've not worked with those sort of people much. That being said, there's a couple of things you can do. So first of all, I would get them to see how many steps they can do on a neutral lung. So really simple test: small breath in, small breath out, squeeze your nose, walking on the spot, not running, not going dead slow. Ask them to see how many steps they can do before they have to take another breath. The vast majority of people can't do more than sort of 40 or 50, and it starts at 60. It starts at 60 steps. You can will your way through it. You can have willingness to go a bit harder. My nephew who's 18 and just a semi-professional boxer doing about 110, 115 steps at the minute. Ultra fit guy, really adopted the breathing practices. He actually listened to me, which is quite rare for an uncle, I think, and a nephew. So that's one thing I would do. I would say, how many steps can they do? Because they might be really functionally killing it. They might be in a great position, or they might not be. So that's the first test. Second test, tape measure, goes around the bottom rib cage. You measure the inhale and the exhale in centimeters. And you head over to breathingiq.com, which is run by Dr. Bliss of Greenwich. Pop those numbers in. It's going to give you a rating. It's going to give you a rating between A and D. And those two tests are very powerful. So how's my chemistry, and how far can I move my diaphragm? How much does my rib cage really move? Because if they're not an A, and if they're not doing 80 steps, then they're leaving money on the table. They're leaving something on the field. They're not at their potential. And they might still be really fit. But if those athletes are looking for even a 1% marginal gain, and this would give them far more than 1%, this would be very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. So you need somebody that's willing to go, okay, I want to have a crack at this. If they're like, oh, I don't believe in breathing. And that's the thing, I don't get clients come to me that don't want to do breath work. It's like if I went down the street and started, hey, do you want a breathing exercise? People tell me I'm an idiot and to get lost, because most people don't know about breath work. I forget that. But those that have seen my work will come to me. They're already in different headspace. And so I think it's less about going to the athletes and more about creating curiosity with them. And I think right now, if you look at the number one female tennis player, there's a football guy. I'm not into the sports side, you can tell. And there's O'Malley from the UFC, I think his name is. So you've got 3 high-end people this year alone that have been mouth taping in public. Why are they doing that? Because they're taking their breathing really seriously. So we're on a bit of a thing here. Big rugby teams do this. Chelsea football team I mentioned at the start of this are doing this. The difficult thing is, and I've got this on good authority, when top athletes find a hack, they don't want to talk about it because it's a competitive advantage. And so it's a real difficult thing to be in, because it's like, let's say I got a top athlete to train. I probably got to sign a non-disclosure agreement, can't talk about it. They probably won't talk about it until they retire and write a book about it. So you're waiting 20 years. So it's a really tough one. But I think going back to what you were originally saying, if you're trying to influence somebody, get them to do those 2 tests, maximum steps test, breathingiq.com test. And I think the other thing as well is like, how do they feel after they've done those steps? Because really, if you're like, Jesus Christ, I'm really out of breath, it's like, it's a real telltale sign that you have got a lot of potential you're not using at the minute.
Yeah, and I think that money on the table line is very powerful, because I think when you can approach high level athletes and take something as quote unquote simple as breathing that everybody does, and show them that they're leaving money on the table and that they can improve their performance, that's the light bulb moment for a lot of people. I'm curious too. I've been experimenting the last, I guess, since like August, July, with alternating foot strikes or landing points on exhales. Have you come across any of that? I know you're not necessarily into as much from the athletic side, but I'm wondering just from like everyday life in terms of people walking, if you've heard anything about that. From the running perspective, it's supposedly people that exhale and land on the same foot the majority of the time end up incurring injuries more often.
Wow. Yeah, I've not, but there's a chap called Gray Cause who, if you've not interviewed yet, I'd highly recommend it. He taught me the oxygen advantage. He is a runner, Qigong instructor, and he would be a really good person to talk to about running and breathing.
So going into a couple of the podcasts you've done, you've interviewed, like you said before, a lot of interesting and very smart people. And you were mentioning trauma release before, and there's a very impactful video that you have where you have a podcast guest on and you get on the floor and he starts kind of taking you through some of these release therapies. And I kind of want to get into that a little bit because I didn't dabble with it because I looked like this might be something that I need to talk a little bit about, get more instruction on. I know it started with you on your back, kind of putting your feet together, and that's how the body starts kind of releasing. So just kind of go into that a little bit and how you kind of comprehend that.
Yeah, so I'm not a trauma release instructor, although I'm going to train for it, I think, next year because I really enjoyed it. But this started happening in my body about a year before I even heard about TRE. My body just started doing some weird stuff in the diaphragm, started going a bit crazy, and I just dismissed it. I was like, something's wrong with my diaphragm. Told my girlfriend, she thought I was crazy. And then my friend from the Wim Hof retreat, he said, and we're into all sorts of wacky stuff, you know, we're watching all sorts of podcasts. He's like, my body keeps doing this thing and it's like vibrating and shaking. And I go through this process for about an hour and I just feel great afterwards. And I was like, this guy's mental, you know. And then like we were doing a trip together and we're in the same hotel room. And I was like, oh, look, my diaphragm's doing this thing. He goes, oh, that's what mine used to. Anyway, so I went through this whole process, my diaphragm kind of doing some stuff. Fast forward to this year, I get introduced to Dr. David Baselli, who came up with TRE, trauma release exercises, or what I think now that they're also called this, I think it's more tension release exercises. I think the more I hear about trauma, I think we've got to be really careful. That's a really loaded word. What kind of trauma, you know, can it be stored? You know, there's so many questions about it. Is it in the tissue, energetically, spiritually? It gets very deep. So for me, I'm kind of framing it as it's tension, and our bodies are just full of tension, man. You know, we are sitting. We're not, you know, if you think about what our ancestors were doing just a couple of thousand years ago compared to what we're doing now, the foods we eat, I get so much tension in my jaw because I don't chew properly. I don't chew proper food. You know, I'm sitting's really bad for your diaphragm. You know, being in that weird, like, L position stops your diaphragm from moving properly. So your diaphragm's full of tension because it can't move. That causes problems in the guts and in the liver and the kidneys and the heart and so many different things. And so I just think we're full of it. And then, you know, if you believe in earthing or grounding, you know, I'm disconnected from the planet right now. My cell phone's on charge. I'm touching it. It's plugged into the cable, into the outlet. And now I'm getting electricity in my body that can be measured using an amp meter. So got all this stuff going on. And what Baselli is saying is when he was living in, I think, Lebanon, and the bombs were being dropped in the war sort of 30, 40 years ago, he's a really curious guy. It's like, everyone's shaking, everyone's trembling, which we all know. We know people tremble when they're scared, but I never asked myself the question, why? Why would somebody tremble when they're scared? And he asked himself that question. And he looked at the animals in the wild and noticed that when they're about to die and then they suddenly get released for whatever reason, the lion gets scared, they kind of just shake it off and then they just walk off. And same in these traumatic situations, people are just shaking. So why is that? And his whole thesis is you're shaking out the tension, out the trauma. You've got all this energy in your tissue. It needs to get out. And it's a perfectly natural response to kind of rebalance the nervous system, shake away that cortisol, whatever is going on in the body. But because in the West we suppress it, it has nowhere to go. And so we just store all this crap in our tissues for years and years and years. You know, people say the issues in the tissues. So you've got all this, you know, and in my case, you know, nearly 40 years of not shaking, not, you know, trying to be strong, trying to be a man. And so the minute he gets me on the floor, my body just goes freaking crazy. And because I've been already doing this, I don't think what you saw there was a normal reaction. I think for most people, it takes a bit of time. Because I'd had a year of playing with this, and I had so much respect for this guy, and I'd already done a couple of his sessions before you saw that one. Even now, my body just wants to start doing stuff. It's really interesting. So I think there's something related to trauma, but I'm not clear. But I would definitely say there's tension. And when you're done, it feels like you've had a really good massage. That's the best way. And you just feel like, and you're in complete control the whole time. You almost have to question, like, am I doing this or is my body doing this? But I've just come back from the US and I was in Wyoming doing teacher training for a different modality, breathwork modality. And I had some incredible TRE, and it's not even meant to, but my body was just kicking into it. And just something I touched on earlier, this body wisdom. My diaphragm was going freaking crazy while I was in the US. And I was like, what is going on here? And I was like, fully like having these tremors, and something made it stop almost instantly. And I've only just started playing with this. My diaphragm was convulsing, and I thought, what if I let that be my breath? So something like that. And I let it do that, and after about 30 seconds, it almost went, thank you. I just wanted to do that. I needed my body was saying I needed to breathe in that way. I've got no idea why. I don't know if I've made it in my head, but I listened to my diaphragm, I let it do this weird pattern, and then it just stopped. and all this energy was gone. But I fought it the whole time I was in the US, going, what is going on? Why is there so much tension here? I was having hot stone massages on it. I was having this lady doing energetic healing methods, and nothing was working. In fact, it was just getting worse. But the minute I listened to it, so anyway, again, I can ramble about these things for hours. TRE is very interesting. I would definitely, if you're interested, get a practitioner, maybe find somebody online that can take you through a session, or somebody in your local area that can really pay attention to your body. Try the different tremor inducing techniques, because it might be different for you. It might not be the legs. It might be you have to be in an arch, or you might have to do a wall squat or something like that. And they might have to just play with you. And then once the tremors start, the TRE coach's job is to move them throughout the body to see where they are. So, for example, at one point the arm was going, so he said, just fake it in the other arm. And then suddenly both arms started to go. And so I think a good coach is going to be able to like look at your body and move it throughout. But yeah, it's very interesting.
And you said prior to talking to that gentleman, you were kind of doing it on your own. Do you feel that the more you've kind of breathed into your diaphragm, that started opening up these positions in your body, and you were getting more intuitive with some of the tension in your body?
Yeah, I think you've just nailed it. I think it's just being body aware is huge. And I was so disassociated from my body for so long. I've talked about this. I also put a lot of weight on in my younger years, because I worked in a lot of restaurants, and I was just like a kitchen porter, and I had access to fries and bread, and I just, eat as much as I wanted, and cakes and desserts. I remember putting a lot of weight on. I was like 18, 19. And so what I would do is I'd just suck my stomach in. And I never really, I never let it out until I was about 37. And so for like, 2-3 decades, I've just got my gut in this like tense position, which again is just tension, just loads of tension. And the more I've been practicing these breathing techniques, working on my diaphragm, working on my rib cage, I think, that has also played a huge part for sure.
Do you have any tips, Mike, in terms of utilizing the diaphragm more? I know we talked about measuring the rib cage and inhales and exhales, and we've followed some strength people that talk about like breathing into like their genitals to utilize that. I was curious, because again, I think a lot of people are just very shallow in their breath, and that also causes that fight or flight response very quickly. They get that emotional response, where I think if we're using our diaphragm a lot more, or just know how to, again, because you're breathing, everyone knows how to breathe. It's what you do. No one really teaches us that sort of stuff. So I was curious if you have any cues or some techniques.
Yes. So the first thing is, you used to breathe perfectly. So I've got my little son in the room next door. He's almost 1 year old now, and he's got perfect breath. He's even a bit mouthy at times. It's not all nasal, which is very interesting. And we're really paying attention to that. Anyway, that's a whole other subject. But his whole rib cage and belly is just this beautiful jellyfish motion. And it's a 360 breath. So it's not a belly breath. It's a 360. The sides, the back. COVID patients, they started putting them on their sides because there's more space to breathe. Put a COVID patient on the back, you take away a huge amount of their lung capacity. So you put patients on their side, because we're breathing into our backs as well. So you used to breathe in a really beautiful way, in a functional way, and your body remembers and it wants to get back there. So you've got to show it the way. What happens is we sit, we have chronic stress, we have poor role models, we have shit TV. We have all these things showing us, how a superhero's physique should be. And so we kind of do a lot of gut sucking, a lot of traumas, a lot of tensions. So there's two things. Number one, flexible rib cage. Number two, diaphragm strength. They're two individual things, but the two things together work in harmony. So it's like, how well are you at drawing the air in and getting the air back out again? And that's the diaphragm. But how flexible is your rib cage? Because there's two ways to look at lung capacity. It's like the bags that just hang there, that don't do anything by themselves. Yes, they've got a capacity, but you'll never get to it in your rib cage. But the other way of looking at lung capacity is like, how much can you really open your ribs? Because if your ribs are tight, then you're impeding it. So I often say, most people's rib cages look like a metal bird cage, tight and stuck. But I would much rather have your rib cage look like a balloon, and imagine two more balloons inside there. So even the rib cage itself is so flexible, and you can do that through stretching. There's many stretching modalities you can do. And then for the diaphragm, I recommend something like this. This is the Relaxator from Anders Olsen, who is part of the Breath book with James Nestor. It's $25, has 5 settings on it. And you can really increase the resistance. very, very intensely. And so what that's doing is it's making it harder for you to move air. So your diaphragm is having to work a lot harder. So it's almost like picking up a dumbbell at the gym. They don't want to pick up, 200 pounds. You want to pick up the right weight for you at the right time. So you can go at level 1 and you can do it quite nicely, do some breaths that way, or you can really ramp it up. So they're the two big things. A lot of people like Ben Greenfield use this. I think Asprey may have even got one of these. But they're the two big things really, is like, how can I make my diaphragm stronger? And how can I make my rib cage more flexible? And there's this thing called vital capacity, which is if I measured how much air you can suck in right now and how much air you can blow out and put those two numbers together. I think it's like 4.8 litres is the average when you're 30-year-old male. That drops by about 40% when you're 80. So it's dropping all the time. And they use vital capacity as a longevity measure. And so they look at, well, how much air can that person really shift? And often when you think about a sick old person, they're normally mouth breathing, they're breathing very shallow because everything's become weak. Their diaphragm's atrophied, their rib cage is really tight. And so a really useful longevity marker is how well are you shifting the air, how well are you bringing the fresh air into the lowest part of your lungs, which is the best part because the gravity's there, the blood's there, and how good are you at removing the stale air, how good are you at getting that gas back out again. And again, that comes down to those two things, strong diaphragm and flexible rib cage.
Awesome.
So you mentioned how much we suck in our stomachs because what we see in magazines, what we see in television, and another thing we do a lot as a culture is we tend to overeat. How much does having a full stomach impact your ability to move air and to get that diaphragm moving, or does one not have to do with the other?
I haven't gone deep into this. That's a really interesting question. I would say when you're digesting, that uses a hell of an amount of oxygen to digest. So if you do a breath hold on a full stomach and measure that versus when you fasted, you'll have a really different number when you've done your first fast before caffeine versus a full meal and a coffee, let's say, breakfast. So that's one thing. The other thing is it probably comes back to like, what's the goal that someone's trying to achieve here? So if it's like, I want to do breath work, I would wait till you've had an hour after your food. If it comes down to, again, it depends the goal here. If someone's saying to me, look, I've got a real issue. Like me, I had irritable bowel syndrome. So I had like really not a good gut, gassy, a lot of problems. So I interviewed Baz Rutten, who was like a MMA champ. And he gave me the tip, because when I've got a bad stomach, he says, I just take some deep diaphragmatic breaths and I massage my stomach and my guts, and it's so powerful. I was like, wow, that's really interesting. So when I've eaten something I shouldn't have eaten, I don't know, some pizza or some curry, and my gut's not happy, I just focus on those deep massaging breaths. And because you can still go deep. If you've got a belly full of food, you can still move it. It's just uncomfortable. Your body probably doesn't want to go deep, but you've always got that conscious control over the diaphragm. So again, it probably comes down to what that person's trying to achieve. I would say probably just with the breath, you don't want to have to really think about it. That's like in an ideal world, you wouldn't be talking to me right now. Nobody would be talking about the breath, maybe breathing exercises. But when it comes to functional breathing, it's something that should just happen automatically. But, with this modern world that we've got where we're doing everything wrong at the moment, artificial light and, all this stuff, we've messed up a lot of things. And so I think it comes down to what are they trying to achieve and why would they want to do diaphragmatic breathing when they've eaten? It might be a digestion thing. Just thinking about the diaphragm. But yeah, you've always got control. I think there's a guy called Dr. Chatterjee that wrote a book on stress in the UK, doctor, and he said we move the diaphragm about 1 centimeter normally, unconsciously, but you can move it about 10 when you think about it. So I think that still exists when you've got food, but there's almost sometimes a natural resistance not to go too deep because I think your body is digesting. I don't know if that answers the question. I feel like I've rambled on that one a little bit, but there's a few bits to it.
No, it definitely answered the question and kind of where I've been with that. Like you said, sometimes when you want to get some of that, breath of fire stuff, it's better to have that empty stomach. But like you said, even after you breathe or eat, you can still breathe pretty deep. And you had a video on, I believe it was the gentleman who does the Soma breathing, and he was going over some digestion techniques, and one was like the crow breath where you and then the other was kind of getting in child's pose to move some gas. And I I never thought about that, but I was like, wow, I was able to, move some gas, kind of
Yeah.
get rid of some digestive issues. So I thought that was very helpful as well.
Hmm.
Mike, you mentioned talking with Boss Rutan. Have you experimented with his O2 trainer at all? Is that similar or a
Yeah,
different
it's
version
good.
to the one you just showed us?
It is. It's good. Yeah, he gave me one. It was a very very kind gift. I gave that to a friend that was struggling with their breath, and they've had good results with it. So yeah, if you want to get that as well, I think this one for me is it's so self-contained. It has the resistance here. His one is still wonderful. It comes in like a box, and you get all the extra little bits, and you can kind of swap them around. But I'm on the go quite a lot, and so this just goes around my neck, and it's just simple. But yeah, Aerofit do something as well. There's different widgets out. There's loads. But yeah, good guy. Really like that guy. Yeah.
And is that something that you utilize on a regular basis, like a daily practice?
Not necessarily daily, but definitely a couple of times a week. I will do my breathing techniques, and I'll do that. I'm in that stage again now where it's like I'm rebuilding. So we've had a baby almost a year ago. Started this business. Definitely slipped a little bit this year on some of my practices. I think they say you lose 700 hours of sleep in the first year with your kid. So I've been going through that at the moment. Wow. So we're just coming out of that first phase now. And the last few months has been just getting back on it again. So it's been wonderful just to go, okay, because I've been feeling really stressed this year. It's been quite tough. And so being the breath guy, I was like, what's going on here? Because you're not doing everything you should be doing, are you? So I had to go back to base. I took 4 months off this year just to really go back inside and go, what the hell's going on? Something's wrong. You're not feeling like your normal self here. Had to do some deep work on it. And so I feel like I've come out of that now and I feel a lot better. I feel actually more relaxed than before. I always had this background level of stress. It was always like a 3 out of 10. Breathwork got me from about a 7 or an 8 down to a 3. And it's stuck at a 3 for about the last 4 years. But it's always been there. And then I think the icing on the cake or the cherry or whatever you guys say was going to America and spending 10 days learning some new breathing techniques and some new modalities. And that's got me down to about, I don't know, 1.5, something like that on stress. It's always there. I think we always got some stress, but yeah, that's been quite helpful.
That was your trip to Wyoming you were referring to earlier,
yeah.
So you just bring up managing the business. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you just get 200K followers on YouTube? Is that what I saw?
Almost, I'm about 6 days away. I've just done the maths this morning, actually. I'm at 199, 347, something like that. So I need about 6 days. Yeah.
All right. Well, first and foremost, congratulations, because we create content and that's something we dream about. Just how has that process been for you? How long have you been going all in on creating content? What has been the things that have really brought you into that next stratosphere as far as getting more followers and making a business out of it?
Have you heard of Enneagrams? Have you ever heard about Enneagram tests?
No,
it's worth Googling. I only did this a couple of months ago. There's 9 personality types, right? And there's one personality type that loves to show off and wants love and attention and external validation. I was like, oh shit, that's me. And I think that's really helped a lot because I really enjoy the game of social media. I really enjoy getting likes and follows. And if I didn't, I probably wouldn't be making the videos as much. It just so happens that personality type that I've got also mixed in with me falling in love with breathwork. And it mixed in with me having a video production background career. I studied video production at uni. I did wedding videos for a number of years. I also learned how to talk in front of large audiences in my corporation. And so I have this huge unfair advantage of pulling all these different experiences together. But again, YouTube started as a Forrest Gump thing. I just made a couple of videos because got back from Wim Hof and there was no Wim Hof videos. It's hard to believe now because YouTube's got thousands of them. But back in 2016, there wasn't any. And I remember lying on my bed thinking, this is just awful. This is like not fun at all. And so I just made a couple and a couple more and forgot about them. And then my girlfriend's like, you've got 1,000 followers. I was like, piss off. And then she's like, you should monetize this. So we went through the monetization process and all that sort of stuff. And then I was so scared to like show my face and use my voice. I thought I'm going to get so much hate. And so the first videos I went on Fiverr.com to hire a voice artist and I wouldn't show my face and went through that process for a couple of years. And then slowly but surely I made my first video of me talking about something. And I was like, oh, I didn't get like loads of hate. I thought I was going to get, and so I went through that process and slowly. And then we went traveling. So we quit our jobs in 2018. 18, been in the corporation space for nearly 20 years, quit my job, sold the car, we sold the bed, we sold everything, and we just left the country, went traveling. So this is way before the pandemic, like a good year and a bit. And we just bought all my tickets out of the country. And while we were there, I was just, first month is just unbelievable. You're looking at paddy fields in Singapore, Philippines, and taking all these night bus rides, and it's just wow. But after about 3 months, it's the same almost every day. You stop taking photographs, and I was like, I need to do something, because I started working while we were in Bali, and but we had to come back for my family. My dad was sick, and I chose to get a day job again. So I fell back into the corporate career, and I was like, what have I done? I'd managed to escape the matrix once, and now I'm back. This YouTube thing, I don't know what's going on with it. And we had this deep conversation. She's like, just do it. Just fucking go for it. Just let's do it. I was like, okay, I'll give me 2 years, and I think I can probably get this where it needs to get to, and I can quit this job again. It took 3 years in the end with the pandemic, but then last December I quit my job, and we jumped into this full time. And it's freaking scary, because I'm the only income now in this family, and there's a lot of things going on. We've got a lot of plans. We've got, coaching and memberships and different things. And I love it. Every day I know how lucky I am that I've got people that have to go to work every day. And I think Arnold Schwarzenegger says 75% of people hate their jobs in the US, so I know how lucky I am that I have this. But I've done a number of things with YouTube. I took Ali Abdul's course, Part-Time YouTube Academy. Highly recommend that. It's really good. This guy's just about to hit 5 million followers on YouTube. So I took his course, got to speak with him. Through taking that course, I got invited on his podcast. He came on my podcast. I got that connection. Met Chris Williamson. He came on my podcast as well. So all this was all through Ali. I did a VidCon summit in London. I went to that. I joined a YouTube mastermind. I've now joined a business mastermind. I have 3 business coaches that I pay that coach me on different things. And I've outsourced a lot of stuff now as well. So I have a video editor. I'm just about to hire a thumbnails editor, graphic designer. And so it's been a slow progression. But I've by no means mastered it. By no means. Even now, I've put out content this week and it's bombed. I'm just like, why is that bombed? So I'm really curious still about it, compared to some other things. So it's an interesting game, and it's constantly shifting all the time. The algorithms keep changing, and in the past I would optimize for search, so I'd make sure the keywords were like bang on. Now it's about curiosity, or I think it's about curiosity. And so but I love it. If I wasn't doing breath work, if I wasn't doing stuff in front of the camera, I'd probably still be doing some sort of YouTube stuff. I think I had a couple of other channels. I had a hypnotherapy channel, which I've since sold now. I also had a binaural beats channel, which I've put on hold. So I do enjoy making content, and I enjoy looking at the results of it. So I think it's just that enjoyment bit as well. But even today I was thinking I need to hire a YouTube coach, because I'm still missing the trick. I'm still missing some tricks there somewhere. But yeah.
Like you mentioned, working with some business coaches and even thinking about hiring a YouTube coach. And we say on the athletic side, even coaches need coaches. So I'm curious about how impactful that has been for you, and maybe what specifically each one of those 3 help you with.
I'm very weak at marketing, and I'm very dyslexic, and I've got ADHD. And so I like to have a lot of challenges. And I used to have speech problems as well. So anyway, so I'll put all these things together. So I've got a guy in fact, I've just outsourced this actually. I've just outsourced all my marketing to a marketing agency, because I was trying to be the marketing guy. And so I'm trying to write emails and do sequences and have landing pages and sales pages, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting, man. And the only way I'm going to get good at that is if I dedicate myself to that. I don't want to dedicate myself to that. I want to dedicate myself to breath work. So I've got a marketing person. I've got a mindset coach. And I've got this other lady who's fascinating. And she's helping me understand traditional media, TV, radio. She's helping me with dressing like I don't look homeless, because I've got terrible dress sense. So she's helping me with my clothes and my hair, and all these things that I would never even think about before, but actually has made me have more I'm going to an event tomorrow in London. So I had a professional haircut and shave yesterday. Never will do. So there's all these different things that I'm working on that I realize are big blind spots to me. That may not individually sound like a big problem, but when it comes to say working with a client, we give off a lot of signals. Judy was telling me, So the type of clothes you wear make a huge difference. Your posture can make a huge difference. The language you use, even the photographs you put on social media. You know, certain clients that come from, say, upper middle class backgrounds would never put a picture online. I say never, I'm sure some do, but she's saying wouldn't put a picture online of them eating ice cream in the street because that would be a big turn off. That would not look. And so it's all these things. So I'm just constantly learning, like, how society works, how marketing works, but really what's come back to me this year from all these coaching sessions is I just want to be the breath guy. That's it. So my girlfriend / wife is coming to the business 2 days a week now. Her goal is to get me guests on the podcast and a few other bits, so I don't even have to do that anymore, and I can literally just dedicate my time to like learning breathing techniques and working with clients, and my goal is just to strip everything else out. And not get involved in any of that business stuff, because this year has been so tough because I've had to deal with the bookkeeping and financial issues and fill in the blank websites and domains and all that blah 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 stuff. And so I had to really talk to my ego and go, it's okay, man, you don't need to do everything, even though you think you probably have to, it's okay. So that's what those coaches have taught me. So each one brings something very valuable to the game.
And as your breathwork practices, have they allowed you to let go of those things?
Not completely. No, because I was like, I can still be a good marketing guy. I know I can. Or the sales guy. I have to be the sales guy. So people jump on a call with me, and my job is to ethically help them make a decision whether or not they want to work with me. And that's tough. A couple of months ago, I did 40 sales calls in a week. I was exhausted. And people are on the fence. It's quite a high ticket item. So some people, it's a lot of money for them. And so they have to know that it's the right thing to do. And there's a lot of stuff going on. It's wonderful, but it's also very, very, it can be very taxing on the system, very draining on the system. Yeah.
Better than having the drain and the tax of working for someone else, though. For sure. Exactly. You know what? That you're so right. Compared to like going into the corporation every day, having customers shout at you, having your managers treat you like dirt, all that stuff. It's like, it's a completely different set of challenges. Yeah.
Mike, thank you for that insight. I am a film student. I just graduated, and Rich is the running coach, and that's kind of why we started this. So we're always trying to figure out which ways to go. And just like you said, there's so many different avenues, different coaches to hire. So thank you for giving insight on how you've built your business. It's really helps us, and I'm sure we'll have a long talk about that after this podcast. Let our audience know some of your favorite podcasts or favorite videos of yours that if they're intrigued by this podcast that they should go and check out, or a good place to start on Take a Deep Breath.
So if you're heading over to takeadeepbreath.co.uk, because we're British, we don't use .coms because we're weird. But if you head on to takeadeepbreath.co.uk, through that website, you'll find all my podcasts, clips. There's all sorts of stuff that'll take you to the YouTube channel. But it's a good place to start there, because you'll be able to, if you want to, you can book a complimentary breath consultation with me to see if you might be a good fit for client work. I have, for people a bit more affordable, there's a 5-week video program, functional breathing course. You can start that immediately, and then you can upgrade if you want to and work with me. But in terms of favorite videos, favorite breathing exercises, my favorite breathing exercise right now is coherence breathing. All signs point to that being the perfect breath. Nesta calls it the perfect breath in the book. It's been known as prayer. There's even myths and legends that we used to breathe at 5.5 breaths per minute. We're breathing at like 18 to 20 breaths per minute now. So there's all this, and that's a bit of fun, but still, it's a fun thing to play with. But this breathing technique will calm you down, build your resilience to stress. It can reverse the age-related decline of your heart by up to 10 years. I've just been speaking to a cardiologist about this the other day. It takes a lot of pressure off the heart, lets it regenerate. It will help with the diaphragm. It'll balance the nervous system. It'll make you sleep better. It's dead safe. Almost anybody can do it. I've got multiple versions on my channel. I've got a nighttime version without any blue light in it. So I think, if someone's like, where do I start? There's thousands of breathing techniques. Just start doing 20 minutes of coherence breathing every single day. In fact, there's a study I just read that was given to me a little while ago. Fantastic study. It was an American study, actually. They took a basketball team and they split them into 3 groups. First group was test groups, nothing happened to them. Second group watched motivational sports films. And the third group did 20 minutes of coherence breathing every day for, I want to say 90 days. And then they looked at the results. How many baskets could they score in 90 seconds? How many hoops could they get in 90 seconds? No change happened to the first two groups, but the group that the coherence breathing tripled the amount of shots they got, tripled. So why is that? Because they can handle their stress better. They can handle being under pressure better. Their nervous system is more balanced. So that's all they did. Just 20 minutes of coherence breathing for 90 days, and it changed how they were able to act on the court. So there's loads of evidence that it's science based. It's good for people that have been through PTSD. There's so many benefits to it. So that is my favorite thing. And I think if you take anything from this conversation, just go and start doing coherence breathing.
I'm gonna look into that. I work with the basketball team at the high school where I teach physical education. Cool. And I'm big on having the kids start the class with 5 minutes worth of just kind of box breathing. But I will definitely look into that. They'll probably think I'm crazy, but we'll spend the first day back at school just doing breathing.
Yeah. You can get a little thing for the ear, and you can plug it in through your phone or through a laptop, and you can get the kids to see if they can regulate it. It's a lot of fun. There's the guy that I was speaking to, the cardiologist, he goes into schools and does this. And it's like, okay, just breathe in this way and let's see if we can balance your nervous system. And it gives them a little game to play. So I'll send you a podcast after this where he talks about it. I think you'll find it a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Mike, with your podcast, what guests have you had that you got done and what they said or what they were presenting with you kind of really changed the way you thought or kind of got you on another avenue with breath work? Or I know you've talked to Dr. Mike Mew. I know you talked to some grounding experts. Anything like that have kind of changed the way you're doing things?
Well, the grounding, I've got a grounding mat I'm on right now. I've got a grounding mat on the bed. That's changed. I had a Brian... his name escapes now, red light rising. So I use the red light device now, improve my mitochondria function. Nesta and chewing was a big one. Patrick and nasal breathing was a big one. Bliss from the diaphragm was it. I don't know, man. They've all got something.
All of them.
It's like, yeah, they've all, so I don't know if there's one big thing. One thing that was really interesting, it wasn't a big change, but one thing that blew my mind is, and maybe, I don't know if you guys know this or maybe you've seen the podcast, but it'd be a fun thing. So when somebody has got fat on their body and then they do exercise and the fat is now less on their body, do you know where that leaves the body and how it leaves the body?
No, how?
Comes out through the breath. So, because I thought, you poo it out or you sweat it out. A little bit of it escapes as heat. But there was this Australian scientist that told me that the vast majority is breathed out. So if you measure somebody's breath now, you measure their CO2 while they're sitting, and you get them to start doing squats and measure their CO2, there'll be more CO2 coming out. So it's the CO2 is the fat being converted and being blown out. So it didn't really change my life, but it's just like a fun fact,
Who, what doctor was that? Do you remember?
Ruben Meerman. I don't know if he's a doctor, but Ruben Meerman, he's got a really good TED talk where he goes around Australia asking people, how does the fat leave your body? And people don't know the answer. And he goes through a whole, but he's if you get a chance to speak to him, he is ace because he spends his time talking to kids in schools. So not in a patronizing way. He has a really fun way of explaining stuff to you. And he's like, I don't know, he's really encouraging. I need to get back on the podcast actually, but yeah, he's a scientist, not a doctor, I think, but a really interesting guy. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. We'll definitely check that out. So final 4 questions we ask all our guests. First one I got for you is, are you a coffee drinker?
Yes.
How do you brew your coffee and how do you take it?
So I have an organic blend from a very fancy shop in England called Waitrose, and I grind it, and I have one of those little Italian cafetières, and so it goes through there really fast. It's like an espresso, and then I have this like really full fat milk which I'll whisk up, and I put a couple of drops of liquid stevia in there. Yeah, that's my morning.
Very nice, very nice. Mike, do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of yourself?
So right now I'm vibing all day, every day. Not all day, but throughout the day, every day. That's really helped me be present and enjoy the moment as much as possible. But that's a new practice. I've only had that for the last month and a half, but that's been a game changer. I get out, and I've got a gym in the garage. I get out to the gym every day as much as I can. Yesterday it beat me. I was very upset. I was like, oh, I'm too tired today. My girlfriend's like, you can relax today. But as much as I can, I get in that gym and I do something heavy every single day. I work the body. I'll stay nasal while I'm doing it. I use the rebounder. Apparently it's really good for our cells to be jumping up and down all the time. I do a lot of hangs. So I'm just trying to keep, especially with a little kid now and being 41, I can see how quickly my body could fall apart if I let it. And so I'm working really hard to make sure that by the time he's 10, 11, 12, and I'm 52, 53, I'm in a good space to do that. Coherence breathing, I do that as much as I can. I use this relaxator a couple of times a week. Up until very recently, because I've just changed gym memberships, but I was using the sauna about 4 times a week as well. I need to get back into the sauna. Saunas, I call that my church. I love the sauna. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I have to say as well, I hear a lot of these morning routines on things. Mine changes a lot. I'm constantly like playing with it. Like the big one for me, the biggest one is like I get up, I have a big glass of salty water. I use Celtic sea salt. I get the baby in the pushchair and we walk for about an hour and we just get daylight in our eyes, fresh air, take the dog and the baby. Nina works out here. We go for a walk, come back. He has breakfast. Then I'll jump into the garage and work out for about an hour, just do different bits. That's probably my main bit. And then, yeah, I don't have them with me. I was looking at them before now. I normally have my red light glasses, but the case is empty. So I normally put those on before bed as well, which I'll be doing shortly. Try and make all the lights nice and dark in the house as well. But yeah, it's one of those processes that keep changing. But yeah, I'm sure there's a perfect routine out there, but I think it's perfect for each individual person.
Yeah, no, everything. We love hearing everyone's little practices, and we take a little bit from everyone that we talk to. Some overlap, but sometimes we take on some new ones and add them to our repertoire. And like you said, not every day is perfect, or sometimes it's different than others. But I think the main thing is just to have some sort of practice or ritual that is what really sets the tone for a great day.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah,
awesome. Thank you,
Mike. What are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
Yeah, I've got about 19 audiobooks on the go. Let me tell you what's on there, because it's a bit embarrassing actually. Dan Sullivan's got a book called 10x is easier than 2x. I recommend that actually with your businesses you're looking at. Have you come across this?
I have not, no.
So good. It's so good. And then his other book's called Gap and Gain. And that's all about being in the gain of like, how far have I come each day, as opposed to my ideals, and then being in this gap where you just feel crap all the time. So I've got those. I've just finished Schwarzenegger's book, Be Useful. I listen to a lot of Chris Williamson. My favorite podcast, other than Joe Rogan, is Tangentially Speaking with Dr. Chris Ryan. I've had Chris on my podcast. I've been on his. He is my absolute hero in life, this guy. So I love him. So I've just listened to his Roma this morning. And I listened to some shit audiobooks as well. I've got you guys will never have heard this, but there's a comedian in England called Alan Partridge. His name's Steve Coogan, the actor. And it's just this really obscure British thing, but I just love it. It's so good. And so I listened to a bit of that before I go to bed at night. He's got loads of stuff out. And then music, I don't know. I'm listening to Fight Club, the book, because I love the film. So I've got that on the go. Diary of the, I listen to loads of books at once. Diary of the CEO. I'm just loving that book at the minute. Getting into that. And I've got about 30 other books that are on my list of things to get into. Business books, breathing. I'm reading the Vivation book at the minute as well, again, because I'm working with some Vivation clients. So a lot of stuff. Yeah. But a bit like, podcast, you just dipping out, sometimes I'm on the walk and I'll be like, okay, I need some Vivation this morning. Sometimes I just want to listen to like some Rogan just had on Gary Brecker recently, so I enjoyed that podcast, the kind of biohacking guy. I do think sometimes though I listen to too much. I wonder if it would be better to strip it down a little bit, but right now I'm enjoying it and I'm learning something from each one. But yeah,
I'm right there with you. I definitely feel like I'm taking too much in, but I think, like Rich said before, it ebbs and flows. Sometimes I'm consuming and other times I'm trying to create and not taking that much in.
Mike, last what we have for you. Do you have a guilty pleasure or guilty pleasures?
Yeah, for sure, man. Loads. Red wine, ice cream, pizza. I don't get time to game much, like at all. But I have one game which is from like 1994 called Red Alert. It's like my guilty pleasure game. It's like this shitty old game, but I love it. It's like you build up the little armies and stuff. So maybe like, you know, once every 6 months I'll get half an hour on that. That's like a proper guilty pleasure, you know, play a little game like that. In a different world, I'd be a proper gamer, you know, I used to play Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto and all these games years ago. Just don't have the time. And this is one of the paradoxes of having your own business, is when you're employed, as soon as the job's over, it's just free time. You got free time to do it. You got so much free time. You know, you finish at 5 p.m, you run out of the office, and that is technically, I mean, you might be thinking about work, and that's part of the problem, but you've got all this free time. When you're an entrepreneur, you've got your own business, that, you know, you got to set boundaries really carefully, because like every moment, like we've hired a cleaner now, which has been always against my ethics, because I know you clean your own house. You don't need to hire a cleaner, but like it's because Nina's got the kid. I'm better off working than cleaning the toilets. Like it's better to pay somebody whatever it costs, you know, 30 quid to come and clean the house, so I can spend my time trying to get a client or something like that. So it's doing all these little things, but with that comes a lot of stress if you let it, because it's like you've got to find time to protect. And in that 10x book, actually, he gave the best advice. He says there's 3 ways you should set your week into 3 things, and he talks about professional athletes actually, and musicians: practice days, performance days, and rest days. And he said you should have 3 rest days a week. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because the weekend's normally obviously 2 days. So I'm just trying to take that, because when it's a rest day, you do not freaking do any work. You don't think about work. You don't do any work. You do other stuff. And I'm like, no, but I can always do something. And then on practice days, you're maybe researching for the business. You know, you're reading stuff. You're learning things. Maybe doing some tasks. And then on the performance days, that's when you're with the clients, or you're doing a podcast or something like that. And so I think there's probably a bit of flexibility in there somewhere, but I really like that, and that's helping me process a bit more and have these boundaries. But yeah.
Right on. Thank you. I guess gaming has been our guilty pleasure of the month. We've had quite a few guests in November that have said that gaming is their guilty pleasure. Yeah.
Good fun. It's good fun. As long as it doesn't take over your life, which it could do. I know it's funny. I walk the dog around, and people leave the curtains open. I have a little look sometimes, and there's so many people just playing games in the lounge now. And I'm like, wow, because I'm now 41. Like we had games, didn't we, when we were kids, and now we've all become adults, and we've still got games. Whereas our parents, I don't know about you guys, my parents didn't play any computer games.
No.
You know, so but we're the generation that grew up with it, and we're still playing them. So I don't know. It's a funny time.
Well, now there's a generation that watches people play video games.
I know, man. It's so weird. It's so weird to me. I know, but it's big, isn't it? It's huge. Twitch. Wow. Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed this conversation, and keep cranking out the content, because I will be following it. And thank you.
Appreciate your time tonight. It was an honor and a pleasure to chat with you. And I look forward to digging more into your work and your YouTube stuff, and getting a little bit better at breathing.
No, nice one. Cheers, guys. Yeah, really nice hour. So thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing how you guys get on and watching your growth now as well. So yeah, keep plugging away, and yeah, maybe we'll do this again at some point in the future. It'd be nice. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks, Mike.
Cheers, guys. See you later. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.